Immediate film that I have been working on, which is of great relevance to international cinema, is uh, is about a 9-year-old girl search for a 7-year-old brother, based against the backdrop of bonded child labor. So, bonded child labor being such a huge issue internationally, the way the script has been done and written adds a lot of luster to the story and to the rather grim and heavy backdrop. So it's a delightful film which I've been working on, all set to go on floor in a couple of months, and a lot of international attention has already been shown in this film, and we are all set. There's another one that I'm doing, which is an Indo-German project, which is slotted for much later because lots of work has been going on for that. And with these things taking a lot of my mind time, I think it's remarkable how, having done Pancham Unmixed a few years back, when I started looking at the footage and the wealth that I mentioned about from the R.D. Burman shoot earlier, I couldn't help resist bringing this out and being ready with it, because in every screening, in that 80 plus screenings that I have been present at festivals or domestic or private screenings, invariably the question that when are you giving us the rest of the stuff would come, and I knew always that it's not going to be so easy. It's not that I can take out the rushes and give to someone, and so it was almost like that. It took us 6 months time to actually, with a team of 4-5 people all the time on it, to debate what can come, how, in what way, what should come, what should not come, and those. So to create those, but I feel that so I almost worked overtime, so to say, in the sense that I had other things to look after, and then this to also get going. And I feel that at the end, I have been just delighted to have worked on it, revisited it again, and having come out with such a treasure of 5 hours plus, which can just enthrall, excite, captivate whoever is the person who's watching, whether he's a music lover, he's an RD fan, he's a classical music lover, he's a jazz lover, he's a life lover, he's a leadership, management consultant. I think the range and the scope for us to learn and get entertained at the same time with this collection is really immense. So it's been a very, very interesting experience, and I think there's a lot that is there in it for everyone, and I think that's one of the reasons why I feel again it's going to work. I've not created it with that mindset, but I definitely see a possibility. I was concentrating on how interesting I can make it, where you click anywhere and you listen and it's all gripping and captivating. But in retrospect, I feel that it's going to be a big gripping collection for everyone. What comes to the audience, what comes to the viewers is absolutely power packed. You start from wherever and you see and you get absolutely glued to whatever is being spoken. But they are anecdotes, but they are insights, other than anecdotes, observations, some amazing versions of the same thing, where different people are talking about his last day before he passed away, for example. There are so many people who talk about that day in the entire collection, and when people talk about different things and the way they were connected and they interpreted and the way they had witnessed the whole thing, I think it's not very dramatic, but it's very interesting to hear, in the sense that everyone has a different thing to say about the last day or the last few days, and people who spoke to him. So at the end, Of course, not in the same way, but it does become a Rashomon at the end, that it interests me to know that okay, so what he's saying is different from he, and at the same time I'm not keeping very deliberately, things that is just for there for the sensational aspect, but things that looks just a little different in terms of perspective or observation, and it makes great interest to the viewer like you and me to just listen to what might have happened, what did happen, what could have happened, and so on. So it's an interesting collection, and there are lots of things like these, lots about his childhood, his growing up years, which we could not fit into the film, but they make absolutely fascinating listening. My general approach remains the same that I have for everything else, that first create what you want to create and then try and see if there is a market for that, how and when. I don't have any problems with market, but I don't go with that as an approach, as a outside in approach. The first stage is to create something that people see, like, seems worthwhile, and part two, I think, is the marketing thing. So I'll wait and see for people who know marketing what they suggest and what they advise, how to go about it. It's a priceless possession, that much I know, that much I can share with people, and sooner or later it will be in a position where everyone can actually access it in some way or the other. And there are various platforms. Today it can be a DVD, it can be YouTube, it can be television, it can be, there are endless ways. See, with a film, it becomes very difficult to have more than an hour and a half or two, and so on. But with the wealth of treasure, the wealth of interviews that we have in the process of making the first film, it's not every day that you have Asha Bhosle ji and Gulzar Saab and Javed Akhtar and Rishi Kapoor and Shiv Kumar Sharma and Hari Prasad Chaurasia and Vidhu Vinod Chopra and Vishal Bharadwaj and Shankar Ehsaan Loy and 20 more bright stars like these coming together and talking about a person who they have either worked with or they are trying to understand and revere him as their icons. So whether you're talking about musical interpretations from the younger generation, a few musicians who have not worked with him, or you're talking about close people who have worked with him, his musicians, Bhupender ji, then people who we don't have anymore, people like Shakti Shamant or Shami Kapoor, or even Sachin Bhaumik, okay, who were very close to him and knew him as person and as musician. It doesn't happen every day. So when we have these kinds of people and they have said so many things which could not be used in the film because of time paucity and various other limitations, then I think it becomes such a wealth. And even there I have kept only 6 minutes or 9 minutes or 10 minutes, 12 minutes at best sometimes of these people. So 3 minutes, 6 minutes, if they have 4 things to say, you can imagine how engrossing it can be. And it's engrossing, and that's why we are keeping it there. So a lot of things about his childhood which we do not know still, a lot of things about his growing years, a lot of things about his low days. Many people have their own take of what led to his downfall, so to say. More than downfall, his low days. And these are some of the very interesting actual and psychological observations. Actual in the sense that if there were a few people who everyone believed was leading to his downfall, everybody so close to him cannot be wrong in their perceptions. So that makes interesting to listen to each one's perspective, and some of these people's psychological understanding of Pancham or life. I think since they are all great people in their own right, their understanding is always very interesting to listen to. I think put together it makes some of the fascinating things that can go to students of life and management schools and team building things and leadership, and I think the scope is just immense for different kinds of people benefiting. So I'm not talking about just musicians or Pancham lovers who can benefit from something like this. And again, because they are all separate independent interviews, so they can pick and choose based on what they want to look at. In the collection, for example, you have Louis Bank playing a small piece of Kuch Na Kaho from 1942 love story, and somewhere he slips into it the theme music of Eric Segal's love story, and it works brilliantly because he's just spoken about that Pancham Das song. Some of them have symphonic possibilities, expanse, scope, and which he wants to reinterpret. So in a way, it's my way of telling Louis Bang that Louis, come on, do what you had mentioned and thought of doing a few years back. And what I was thinking was that if someone of the quality of Louis Bang, I admire him so much, takes up interpreting the tracks of R.D. Burman, whom I admire so greatly again. Can you imagine if he plays his piano for 20 minutes, 25 minutes with a structural thing in mind? What brilliant experimentation and treat it can be for the viewers. And I'm not talking only about R.D. Burman fans here. I think it can charm a classicist, for that matter. It can charm an opera admirer. It can charm a current young upcoming composer that look at this. I mean, if R.D. Burman's song had that and Louis Bank is interpreting that, I'm sure even among the current good composers that are composing, every now and then probably there would be one composition which will have that possibility, or when you have Shankar Ehsan Loy pointing out at the unusual movement of his mukhras and antaras, one particular point where he shows an example of how unusual the mukhra starts and where the antara goes, and it's not common at all, and how it takes a genius actually to wind it up everything and come back to the point where you started. So I think these things are greatly charming for any music listener, any music composer, any fan general who's not into music but has great taste in his ears and mind. And so things like these, or it can be Shakti Samant's observations, about how he saw his downfall, why Sopan would come and he had to tell Sopan that, Sopan, you don't sing me the song that Pancham is to sing. Let him sing. His voice has a certain sweetness which I don't find the same in you. And in what way Sopan would insist, and how Sopan was hijacking many things, and so on. So I don't want to go too much into it because the film has it all, whatever I felt was appropriate. Once again, this is a different experimentation, but in terms of the intention to reach out to people with substance that can charm you, enthrall you, educate you, and fascinate you and grip you by their very content, I think is very, very sincere one, and hope that translates. So I would say that it would be first of its kind in terms of what I think the world is heading towards increasingly, that is selective entertainment. Here again, I as a viewer should have my right to see whichever 20 minutes I want to see. So because there are so many people talking about different aspects, now some people who are musically inclined might be very keen to know what is someone like Shankar Ehsaan Loy's observation about certain aspects of his music. How do they see it? How does Vishal Bharadwaj see it, though they never worked with him exactly? But someone else might be interested in knowing something like why was there only 5 rupees in his bank balance, in the locker. Does anyone keep rupees 5 in a locker? And I'm not trying to create controversies through these, but it's people who have their own takes and their own observations about what could have been, what need not have been. There are people who have gone into his personal low days and have created their own takes, have shared a lot about how they could see it coming because of Pancham's own doing and things like that. And eventually the fact that we have to take ownership for our success and our failures, both. And it becomes very, very interesting to know these things, and only the things that I want to know. So it becomes very selective in that sense, because it would be, if it's DVD, it will be very clickable to whichever area you want to witness yourself, with that experience. At the same time, some people might be interested in knowing just the kind of person that Pancham Da was, and for them, how he gave his car to his assistant, because he asked one day to his assistant Maruti Rao Kheer that, so why do you get late? And he said that bahut dikkat hoti hai traffic mein, and he said, okay, you take my car. So he gifted that car. Or why he gave his cook a house in Santa Cruz, or somewhere where so things like these, give a lot of insight about how he used to behave, how he used to work. It made him come across as example of a very good human being. And so many people with their different experiences, I can't tell all of that here, but there are plenty of things, from the way he would do his recordings to the way he would be fascinated by cars and its intrinsic elements, to the fact that how he would do his shows and things like that. I think these make great listening. So I'm going essentially by what has excited me and interested me, with some kind of a check and balance about what may interest a larger range of listeners and watchers. So I think that it seems like a very, very interesting and exciting collection of interviews, and I think it's going to be great fun for people who will watch it in whatever way, whether it's YouTube or DVD or television, whatever way the content comes out to people, or events, shows, anything. I think it's going to be a big treat due to sheer range and quality, both. And I feel that the collection gives throws a lot of light on the various ways in which led to Pancham Da's low phase, also how he probably came out of it, how he was made of a different metal and things like that, and essentially what makes a leader, what makes a genius, what makes a composer, specific, with instances, anecdotes, observations, and in a meta way, in what is the pattern in which prodigies and geniuses are created and live their lives and see things the way they do, and don't see the way things where probably they can be helped. But I think in all, the 5-hour treat is really a treat for anyone interested in life, music, R.D. Burman, and Indian music.